Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming program author Dante, and she is the author of The Base. Before I bring in today's guest, a quick reminder that selected interviews are available at our website, as well as on major platforms like Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and many more. Dante, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
I am a writer, but you knew that, and also a baker and pastry chef, and a scientifically curious person.
So tell us about your book.
The Base is my new release. It's about research scientists on a military base. They are working to perfect a top secret invention before the military's deadline, while there's spies and thieves working just as hard to steal it for their own purposes. The research team knows that there's great potential for their work outside the original plan, and they operate with integrity, but the spies and thieves don't actually operate with the same integrity. So it is a race and chase to the finish line with an unpredictable outcome.
Now, who did you write your book for specifically? Who's your target audience here?
I wrote this book for people who like to think. I also had in mind book clubs and readers groups because there's a lot of opportunity for group discussion on many of the themes and characters. I think people that are interested in science and technology and all these new developments would find it interesting also, because these things, they do make our lives easier, but they also make our lives more complicated. And so that is some of the people and situations that I think would find this book entertaining and would want to check it out.
So could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you would say runs throughout your book?
I think one of the foundations of The Base is good and evil. I mean, it's not necessarily in your face and right in front of you, but it's shown in many different ways, like in comparisons with the different characters and their careers and their life choices. And so it's in there. And I think it really helps to validate the reader a lot of times and what their choices are and what their decisions are. A lot of times when we're going through hard times, we can sort of envy someone else on the other side of the fence, like the grass is greener over there. But I don't think anyone would trade places with the villains in this book.
So if you had to choose, what would you say is the single most important idea you're sharing in your book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
I think that people have more power than they realize. There are characters that choose to develop their skills and then choose to refine their skills and market themselves and live their lives in a certain way. And there are people in the book that don't. You know, like I said before, I think when times are tough, you may envy the other person on the other side of the fence, but you wouldn't trade places with them, not if you thought the whole thing through. So I think we have the power, and eventually our good deeds and good actions will be rewarded. It just takes a little time, and sometimes that can be frustrating, but, you know, it will happen. I mean, you will prevail.
So if you were asked to compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
Jimmy Carter's An Hour Before Daylight really was one of my all-time favorite books, and it's told from the perspective of a child growing up in a working family. In his case, the Carters were a working family at a farm, but in the book's case, it's told through the eyes of Macy Cullen, the daughter of the research scientist, and they are a good family, and they're trying to raise good children that will grow up into good adults and make wise choices when they are in a less than perfect world. And so that is how that is similar to me. And I hope I could one day be as good as Jimmy Carter.
So tell us briefly about some of the characters in the book.
Well, I had the scientists, each who have their unique specialties. And they're very, very different from scientists that people would think are working at a military base. But I also have the villains who are trying to steal their invention. And those villains are about as bad as you can get. And they have all the material things, and they don't particularly care about anyone except for just making the next dollar and making more of those dollars. And so it's a very deep contrast when you see the families that are working hard and trying to raise their children, and then you see the villains that are just trampling over everything without any regard to anyone.
So was it difficult to make characters like Max and Venus, who are very successful from a monetary point of view, but also not glorify what they do?
Yes, it was especially hard because I had to build those characters up from scratch. I had to think the way that they think. I had to speak the way that they would speak. And I really had to learn, how they thought, what makes them tick, and then be consistent throughout the book with their actions. And those type of people I have met in their profession. I have met people like that before in my life, and I would always avoid them, frankly. But in this case, writing the book, I had to create them. I had to speak through them, and I had to bring those characters to life. And these are people that anyone else would just run away from. And so that was very difficult, but I believe necessary. And it taught me a lot.
So were there any particular resources that helped you refine your research so the book would be accurate?
Let me see. The resources, I did a tremendous amount of research because the scientists, I wanted to feel like I was in the room with them. And I wanted to feel like I was doing the research with them. And I really, really wanted to be factually accurate in the creation that they were making. So I used the library very much. I used the internet also. And I have a parent that was a research scientist. And so he didn't realize it, but I was picking his brain too.
So the book's fiction, but through your research on the subject, would you say any of this actually happens?
Yes, it does. Espionage and spying and stealing ideas is a much bigger and wider problem than we thought originally. And there are even people that are suing when they get ideas stolen or perceive that their ideas are stolen in the patent process. And there are people now saying that ideas are being stolen by AI. So espionage is really, really a big deal. And, keeping your ideas close to you and not only researching, but watching your back while you research is very, very important.
So do you think this book could maybe be made into a film or television series?
Yes, very much so. I'm hoping it will. I believe very strongly in the central themes in the base. I do believe in the book, obviously, because I wrote it, but I believe also that there are strong characters in there and lots of examples and situations. And I'm hoping it does get into film or television because I hope it will receive a wider audience. And I believe the themes there should be more open to larger discussions in larger groups of society.
So are you planning on writing a sequel?
Yes, I have been nudged on to do this by some of the readers. And they particularly are fond of some of the characters in the book, and they want to see what they do next. They don't want to see it just die with the base. They want to see more. And so I'm very happy that they are fond of some of the characters because those also turned out to be some of my favorites. So I am working on the sequel right now, and I am adding new characters into the mix and lots of exciting stuff.
So did your environment or upbringing perhaps play any major role in your writing?
Well, my parents put a book under our nose when we were very, very young, just as soon as we were able to see. And they took us to libraries often. And I really credit that with having a big imprint on me and making me into a writer because we were really taught the value of libraries. It's an absolute gem. These things are free and they're everywhere. And I always had a library card. And I think they were a tremendous influence that way. They wanted us to be intellectually curious kids. They wanted us to investigate things. They wanted us to dig below the surface and question things and not just accept facts, that were thrown at us. They wanted us to look deeper. And I'm really very thankful to have had them as parents and to have had that consistent message. And it really pushed me forward as an artist and as a writer.
So what can you tell us about this genre and why you decided to write in this genre?
At this point, I think I am suspenseful fiction or fiction with a side order of science in it, if that makes sense. This is not science fiction. If you are reading the book and you are expecting Martians, galaxies, and spaceships, it's not there. But it has science in the fiction, if that makes any sense. I absolutely love doing the research for this. When I get an idea from one of the characters and I follow it through, sometimes I'm on the internet for days, digging facts up about the different specialties that these scientists have and really fine-tuning that research. One thing that really struck out to me is that some of the things I was researching and thinking that could be probable like 10 years from now, the research is happening for those things now. So it was very exciting.
So what's been your most rewarding experience since publishing your book?
The most rewarding experience since publishing it was getting the phone mail and the emails from people who were nudging me along and telling me to take the plunge and to release the books. And after I released it, then hearing from them, that was very rewarding. But then hearing from new readers and hearing what they had to say and their encouragement and stuff, that was even more rewarding. The most rewarding of all was going to our local library and seeing it on the shelf.
So how would you describe your writing style?
My writing style is proudly AI-free. I am not a hater of technology. I don't hate AI. It's never done anything to me that I'm aware of, but I'm a person who wakes up in the middle of the night and, if I'm getting an idea and I run over and I write it down. And I'm very organic in that way. I feel like I am the story's servant. And I was very intrigued when I copyrighted the base, which happened about 4 years after I copied my first book. The Copyright Office forms now have a little space on it saying, was any part of your book created by AI? I was really bugged out by that. But then when I put the books for sale on Amazon, Amazon now has a little spot on their form saying, is any part of this book AI generated? So it's a big thing, but I'm proud I'm an organic writer. I still write, I still dream, and I come up with ideas.
So your characters, are they pure fiction or do you draw from people you know in real life?
I do have characters that were based on people I know, but I never use those people's names or anything like that. And I don't directly copy people. I'd say a majority of the characters that I have are a combination of real world people that I have met throughout the years and making a character from scratch. When I make a person like that, I call them people soup. The hardest characters that I have created are the not human characters. So I have to make sure that I am consistently speaking the way they would speak and act the way that they would act.
So in your opinion, who should buy your book?
Book clubs and groups that like to share books, I think, and like to share ideas and conversations about books. Folks who want to be challenged by a story and, let their mind be opened by ideas. I always think of books as a good book is a good vacation. And it really should just take you away from everything. It should not stress you out. It really should open your mind too. And that is a thought I've always kept in mind with my writing, that a good book is like a good vacation. And that's what I try to do for the reader all the time. Just give them a place to, go away to and to think of new things and be challenged. And also anyone who would like to give the gift of a book to someone. I think they are often an overlooked audience. And, so I want to reach out to them also because that is something I had in mind because I give people books all the time, not just mine. I want them to think when I give someone this book, they're going to have fun with it. They are going to have a good time with this book.
Do you have a website?
Yes. www.dantetherese.com. My last name is spelled Terese.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Dante, and she's the author of The Base. Dante, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
This is Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of the Author Show. Go out there, buy the book today, and please share this interview with your friends so that they too have the opportunity to discover our guests and their work. The Author Show can be accessed at any time at theauthorshow.com, and for easy access to the show in your mobile devices, just download the app in the App Store or Google Play Store or through the QR code on our website. And whether you're an author who would like to be featured or a reader in search of new books to read, the Author Show is a great place to start. Check us daily as we continue to introduce wonderful authors of very interesting books on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.